We are live. Yo. Bag alert, major bag alert. I got TikToks stuck in my head right now. What's up, person number one who's in the show? Thank you on YouTube. We will start in a couple minutes. Stick with me here. And you're gone. And it's gone. It's hot in here. We will start in a couple minutes here. Just give everybody a chance to get on. Bag alert, major bag alert. We will start at 7:32 Pacific time. Sellout crowd here on the Too Tall Sports Show. Would love to get a few more people in here. No listeners. Well, 7:32. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Too Tall Sports live show, my weekly Tuesday night show. I missed last week. I was not in town, but I'm back. Perfect timing because, of course, Major League Baseball has continued the lockout. They are canceling games. We will get into that. I want to give you the rundown a little bit. But first, let me make sure I let you know every Thursday I drop a podcast. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, right where you are right now, some of you that are listening live. I am on Google Podcasts. I'm on Pandora. Wherever you get your podcasts, I am probably there. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. If you get a chance, please go ahead and like, share, subscribe, rate, review. Whatever you can do to help boost the show, I would really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. So I do a lot of prep work for my shows. I try to do the best interviews I can and provide great content for you, whether it's sports or life or psychology, whatever. I try to provide some good stuff for you guys. So with that said, check out Too Tall Sports Podcast. Head over to my Instagram page and my TikTok page because I'm blowing up on TikTok at Too Tall Sports Podcast. Find me there. I do lots of video content, not just podcast videos, but funny videos too. So check those out at Too Tall Sports Podcast. If you're a Twitter person, it's at Too Tall Sports. I'm on there as well. They just don't give me enough room to put the word podcast in there, but it's at Too Tall Sports. Google me, you'll find me. So with that, I'll give you the rundown of the show tonight. We're going to talk about the Lakers. We're going to talk, of course, MLB Lockout. We'll get into that. LeBron had some comments about a reporter that we're going to talk about, and then he took them back afterwards. Kyler Murray wants a long-term deal. Does he deserve it? Probably, but I'll get into why it's a little bit iffy for Arizona right now. I may get into the Juwan Howard suspension, even though that news is kind of old now. I want to talk about the Nets a little bit and talk about Kyrie coming back and what that means for them, when we will see Ben Simmons, if ever, playing for this team. I'm not sure what he's been doing for the last year, but he's not ready to come back. So we'll talk about that. The Suns are without Chris Paul, which is a huge loss for them. They don't have the floor general that they're used to having, so we can discuss the Suns. Sleeper teams in the NBA, I like the Celtics and Grizzlies right now. Memphis and an MVP candidate, John Morant. Celtics are playing great defense as they normally do, so they're kind of on a hot streak as well. College basketball relatively remained the same this week, even though the top 6 teams lost. All 6. I think it's first time in history. Pretty interesting stuff there. I'll tell you who I like and who I don't. Derek Jeter steps down as CEO of the Marlins and sold his stake back to the team. So he's out, and that's like, I don't know if it's a larger issue. It's what's going on, in Miami with them not wanting to spend money. And Derek Jeter comes from the New York Yankees, who spend money. So difference of philosophy and vision down there in Miami for the Marlins. But I got to start with the lockout. I think that, we got some people that a lot of people are going to blame Rob Manfred for the lockout, but it's really, he's just the messenger boy, for lack of a better word. He works for the owners, much like Roger Goodell works for the owners in the NFL and Adam Silver in the NBA. It's all the same. Commissioners are paid by the owners. So remember what side you're on here. Rob Manfred, though, doesn't seem like he has baseball's best interest at heart, where he truly loves baseball and he wants to see the game grow. And he wants to, it seems like he's apathetic or doesn't care about baseball that much. He seems to be like, whatever the money revenue stream is, we're going with that. I know it's a business. Pro sports is a business. But at the end of the day, don't you want to see a little heart? Don't you want to see a little bit of emotion, love for the game, God forbid, just a little, and care a little bit about the fans? I don't think the players are ever asking for too much. Most of these owners are billionaires with a B. And let's not pretend that all major leaguers are millionaires, because they're not. There's a lot of them that are, but there's a lot of them that are not. And just because you're a big leaguer doesn't mean you get to stay the entire season. You still have to pay your dues and try to stay up there. From what I heard during my career, as hard as it is to make it to the big leagues, it's even harder to stay in the big leagues, which is how ridiculous that is. That's how tough it is. So not everybody's a millionaire that's fighting against the billionaires. And what are the players really asking for? More money for younger players to start off, higher minimum salary from $550,000 to $700,000. That's a huge jump. But why are they doing that? Because it's hard to stay in the big leagues once you get called up. Not everybody's a phenom like a Trout or a Tatis or a Bryce Harper or Juan Soto. There are very few of those dudes that are making the 10, 12, 13-year contracts for $400 million. There's only a few of those guys. Most dudes are on the minimum one-year deal. And then you get to arbitration, which is, if you don't know what that is, you get to your 3rd year of service time if you can get 3 years in. And you go against your organization and they try to crush you and tell you you're not that valuable. And you and your agent go in and say, here's our comps to other players in the league at similar positions, similar numbers. Here's what they're valued at. This is our number. It's all about pushing the player down. That's what it seems like, right? There's always so much against the player, it seems like. I know they're playing a game for a living. You got to get that out of your head. Now take yourself out of it. We're at a different level now, okay? Baseball game is the game they're playing. That is their business, okay? That is the bottom deal there. So, yes, it's a kid's game, but it's a pro sport. Everything is relative based on where the players are in regards to owners too. So it doesn't matter what your thoughts are about baseball, the game. What matters, though, is that you and the fans, are going to miss games. Is it going to ruin baseball forever? No. The players will bring the game back. They're going to try to expand the playoffs so more markets can be in the playoffs. But I heard today the problem with that is you're going to incentivize teams to not, it's going to hurt free agency because as long as you're barely over 500, you're in the playoffs. There's not enough pressure on the organization for the fans. They don't need to go out and spend. So the bare minimum is going to get you by with more playoff availability. So we're going to get a lot of bad teams making the playoffs. It's like the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Very Good. It should be the Hall of Fame, the greatest of the greats getting in, not half the league getting in the playoffs because half the league isn't deserving. I don't want to see the 16 seed get in the playoffs. I don't. I want to see the top 8 to 10 teams in the playoffs. That's what I want. So lots of issues. And I read an article today by Howard Bryant, who is working for ESPN, longtime sports writer there. And he is bringing up an interesting point today that baseball is now being run by non-baseball people that don't really think of the teams as a baseball team. It's a Fortune 500 company. That is a problem. That is lending to a business, investors. It's more along the lines of, all those corporate-y words, corporate values. I think sometimes because the game is so analytically driven, it's a bunch of Harvard grads and Yale grads and Ivy League dudes, and they think of it as like a Fortune 500 business, like the stocks. And it's not, it's a game at the end of the day. It's still a sports franchise. And we're losing sight of that because the people running the show are removed from the game so much. It's really, baseball players have become just numbers. They're not really sports baseball players. It's just a chance to make money off of them. I know it's always been like that. I'm not naive, but it's becoming more and more removed and less emotional. It's becoming a transactional business, and it's all about money, advertising, and TV money, which baseball has plenty of. This is why the players are fighting for this. There's so much money in baseball TV and advertising, and the players don't get enough of it. They're the product. That's what people are coming to see, right? This is what we want. We want shorter games. We got the universal DH, which sounds like it's coming. So it's just very frustrating. And then you get to segue into that. There's been, I don't know if you guys know about this. There's a thing called service time manipulation. What does that mean? When a player gets called up to the big leagues, it starts their service time clock. That will determine when they hit free agency, assuming they get 6 or 7 years in the big leagues of service time. If you bring them up in May instead of April, right out of spring training, it adds another year to their free agency length of time before they're ready to be a free agent. Their service clock doesn't start, technically, it doesn't give them the full 6 or 7 years. You have to wait another season to get your full service time. And that is manipulation by the owners. They've been doing it forever. It happened to Chris Bryant. They've been doing it forever. And players are trying to get out of that. And so if you hold a player back longer, you make them older by the time they hit free agency, which lessens their value long term. So the teams are going to sign them to shorter contracts because they're too old for the long-term deal. It's all about saving money. It's all about service time preservation. Baseball owners have gotten away with a lot for a very, very, very long time. And what about tanking? The players want to draft lottery. Of course they should, just like the NBA. Teams are still going to tank, but there's no incentive to tank because you're not guaranteed the number one pick in the following draft because you have the worst record the previous season. You're going to go into a lottery now, and you may not get the first or second or third or fourth pick because you tanked. What happened to competition and not just driving the price down? I've made videos on this before, and I've done my 2-cent segment, which is my opening monologue of every podcast. The first 10 or so minutes, I go off on something. I give my opinion. And I did it about the Pirates and notably the Pirates and the Orioles and other teams that are just fire selling all their players. Oakland A's do this. They never pay for players, and they just cycle through more and more and more, and they have the lowest salary caps in the league. They are not trying to win. You are now giving away your players to other teams to benefit off of you, and you are not competitive at all. The Diamondbacks do this. They don't give long-term deals. I don't understand it. They're operating. Are you really trying to win? Or are you just operating a low budget business that brings in a ton of money because of TV? It's just very frustrating the way that these owners have done this to the game. So I don't love it. It's frustrating to say the least. Now, baseball's hard to watch. Don't get me wrong. I'm a basketball guy at heart. Okay, I love watching hoops. I love watching football. It's less games, more incentive. There's a sense of urgency with NFL and college football with very few games. Every game matters. When you got 162 plus playoffs, tough to watch them all. Plus, it's not always available in every market. For instance, I'm in Southern California. The Dodgers are blacked out unless you have a nationally televised game or you have Spectrum, the network that they're on. So it's difficult to watch baseball still unless you buy the MLB package, which why would I when my local team's not even on goddamn TV? So anyway, that's a whole other mess. But I digress. That's what's going on with baseball. So MLB, as of today, March 1st, still locked out, and we're missing games at the end of the month. So we will see if they come to a resolution here. Wanted to get in the NBA a little bit as I transition out of baseball. Let's talk about Philadelphia real quick. Early returns on James Harden and Embiid, very good. And these two are going to live at the free throw line. They're going to be unstoppable and really tough because they're going to get a lot of fouls. The games are going to go slow at the pace they like. Philadelphia is built for the playoffs, a slowed down half-court game with a lot of pick and roll and a lot of foul calls and a lot of free throws. Now, if you guys remember, I did say this about James Harden. I did not think he lost a step. I think when Harden is unmotivated, he makes every effort possible to not look like he wants to play basketball anymore. He gains weight. He stops trying. He gets lazy on defense and offense. He's just unmotivated. But James Harden, when motivated, is one of the best scorers we've ever seen in the NBA. I hate to admit it because I don't like the way he plays when he travels and does the step backs and creates fouls, which the NBA is trying to clean up. They are. If you remember in the beginning of the season, they had the fewest number of free throw attempts, I believe, in the first month or two to start the season. Love that. I'm a big fan of less free throws. I always want less free throws. However, Harden's so good at creating contact, he and Embiid, who's so big like a Shaq, they're going to get fouled a lot and go to the line. Do I believe in them as a contender in the East? Milwaukee's been coasting a little bit, but they are the defending champs. You still kind of lean toward them once the playoffs start. It's really hard to repeat, but we've seen it before. Miami did it with LeBron and D Wade. The Warriors did it with KD, Steph, and Clay. The Lakers did it 09 and 10 with Kobe and Powell. It has been done in the last 15 years, but it's still tough to do because you lose guys. PJ Tucker goes to Miami. How does Milwaukee let PJ Tucker walk? The guy is a phenomenal defensive player. He just does it all, and he can shoot the corner threes, right? But Bobby Portis is filling in that role, and he came back, and it's a nice piece for them. They got Drew Holiday, they got Middleton, they got the pieces. But can Milwaukee repeat? So I got them on the radar, obviously. Who knows with Brooklyn? Does KD come back healthy? What do we do with Kyrie with the virus mandate, the vaccination mask mandate? Can he play home games by the end of March? Don't know about that. But if he does, they got a good chance. What's going on with Ben Simmons? The guy hasn't played basketball in, I believe, April or May would have been a year. So almost a year. And now he's got back issues trying to come back to play. I thought he had been working out, getting shots up and getting his body right in preparation for a trade. So what has he been doing? Now he's hurt. They held him out of the Philly game because they didn't want him going back there for his mental state. Like I've said before, I am not here to judge anybody's mental health. Everybody should go to therapy. I'm a big believer in that. However, you would think by a year's time of help and therapy, I would hope mentally and physically, more importantly, you'd be ready to go by now. I don't know. I have lots of question marks on James Harden. A lot of people, I guess I'm in the minority that thinks that Philly won that trade. I totally think that Philly won that trade. How can you say Daryl Morey, the GM of the Philadelphia 76ers, got James Harden, who's a phenomenal player, MVP, All-Star, for a guy in Ben Simmons who hasn't played in a year? And you're telling me Philly lost that trade? I know they give up Seth Curry and Drummond and some picks, maybe long-term you can convince me Brooklyn won that trade with picks. But as with everybody knows with picks, it's a crapshoot. We don't know what those are. Who knows if you're going to get a star or a dud? You don't know. So don't tell me that Brooklyn won that trade. Ben Simmons hasn't played yet. Yeah, Philly looks good. I like the early returns on them. I know it's only been a few games, but give me Philly against most teams right now. Now, of course, they do have the most overrated coach in NBA history, Doc Rivers. Don't at me. Most 3-1 series losses. He often gets out-coached in big-time games, especially elimination games. He's a good coach, just not as highly touted as he should be, or a top 15 of all time. I don't think. Just my opinion, and that's one of my hot takes, I guess. But he folds too many times. I know what the players are playing, but it's too often with how many stars Doc Rivers has had in the last 15 years. Superstars that he's had. Multiple teams, multiple regimes, all that stuff. So, and I know Harden is notoriously bad in the playoffs. I get that. Usually he does not perform well. This will change James Harden's legacy if he were to come through and at least get to a finals versus never making it to a finals as good of a player as Harden is. So I'm looking forward to Philly. I want to talk about some sleeper teams. The Celtics have been playing really well. I think they had a 9-game winning streak before the All-Star break. They've been really hot. They're buying into Udoka, the new coach's system. They're playing defense more importantly, and that's what the Boston Celtics do well. They play defense. They got the pieces. They got rid of Schroeder and made the trade for Al Horford to come back, Daniel Tice, the big guy, to come back, and Derek White from the Spurs, a solid player. They made the moves they needed to make before the deadline. Now, does Boston have enough star power with Brown, Tatum, and Marcus Smart to compete with Milwaukee, Philly, Brooklyn? I personally don't think so. They're going to defend. They're going to play low-scoring games, but they don't have the firepower unless Jason Tatum goes to another level and he steps into superstar status. I don't see it yet. I like Jaylen Brown. I just don't think those two, as good as they are elite compared to like Durant, Giannis, Embiid, Harden. They're not quite there. But they're playing well. The other sleeper, not really a sleeper, but Memphis. They're kind of a sleeper because no one expected them to be this good. And Ja Morant to be an MVP candidate. He's that damn good. Give Ja Morant some MVP consideration. And really, if you think about it, he might be the front runner. A lot of people saying Embiid and then Giannis, but I don't know. You could say Embiid without Simmons for sure. He's been doing it. But take Ja Morant off of Memphis and let's see how they do. So I want to put Morant in there as one of the front runners for MVP. I'm okay with Embiid getting it, but or Jokic even. I mean, people sleep on Jokic because it's unorthodox and he looks slow and unathletic. The dude's unbelievable. Jokic is unbelievable. So he deserves respect also. But I like Memphis, man. They're going to win some playoff series, I think. I think they're going to at least get to the second round. If they get knocked out early, I'll be surprised. But they got the talent. They're kind of the Denver of this year or the Utah maybe. So maybe they get past some of these teams that are ahead of them, but notoriously ahead of them. We'll see. Some college basketball notes. Crazy weekend. All top 6 teams lost, which was, I don't think it had ever been done before. Now, the standings are largely unchanged at this point. I'm going to pull up the standings for you here, just as far as the AP Top 25 released today. Gonzaga still won. Arizona, Baylor, Duke, Auburn, Kansas, Kentucky, Purdue, Providence, Wisconsin. Now, Villanova at 11 did beat Providence tonight, so they may switch spots. But it's pretty much the same characters that are in the top 6 here. Gonzaga, Arizona, Baylor, Duke, Auburn, Kansas. They all lost last weekend, which is pretty insane. But I think we're setting up for a lot of parity. I think there's no clear-cut perfect team out there that's going to run through the NCAA tournament, which should bode for a lot of fun. It's nice when all the number 1 seeds don't make it. You get to see some teams that are gelling better. They have better team chemistry. They're older. Now, I watched a Kentucky game the other day. I noticed something. Coach Calipari is still crazy and flies off the handle. He literally got forehead to forehead with a referee the other day because he's so arrogant and emotional. Calipari is doing something different this year. He's got some transfers and he has an old roster. So I think because of that, Kentucky may go further than usual with these young teams that are not ready to win. What's the common theme with a lot of the teams that win in the NCAA tournament? older, veteran, experienced groups that have played together for a while, not a bunch of one and dones that don't care and they're going to the NBA in a couple hours. This is a different Kentucky team with older players, because I think Coach Cal finally was like, I got a bunch of young talent that's going to the NBA, but I'm not winning anymore. He got that one championship with Anthony Davis back in 2012, and since then, it's been a lot of disappointment for Calipari. So I think he's changing his tune a little bit. If you want to win games, you got to have older players in college basketball. Watch out for Kentucky. I still love Gonzaga. I like the way they play. They got all the pieces. Drew Timme, the big power forwards, really unstoppable usually. And I love Chet Holmgren. I know Paulo Banchero with Duke is really, really good. But give me Chet Holmgren at like 7 feet tall, basically the Kevin Durant disciple, can do everything. So if they go through him, man, I know he's really skinny and he's put on some weight, but I love Gonzaga. Even though they lost, everybody lost. So I'm glad. Get your losses out now. It's going to be tough. I like Purdue. I think they got all the NBA talent and the perfect role players. Arizona's been really good this year. I like them. So, and Duke's got some ballers, and I love Auburn because I love Bruce Pearl. So, as crazy as he gets in that home crowd, and I like Auburn's team as well. They got their 25 plus wins already. So, a lot of exciting stuff in college basketball. I think this will be a fun March Madness. We need it as fans. There's kind of a lull right now before the conference tournaments start. You got no baseball. You got NBA. A lot of teams are down right now, hurt, whatever. Not a great time for sports at the moment. But once baseball comes back, March Madness comes back, I think we should be in for some good television watching for sports here. So I'm excited to see that. I didn't get to my LeBron story yet. Let me get to that. The media is afraid, some of them, to go at LeBron because they want to protect their legacy. He's a nice guy generally. I have nothing against LeBron as a person. All of my criticism that I give, as great as he is as a basketball player only. I don't know him personally. He's probably a great guy. He seems like it. Good dad. It is what it is. I'm only talking about him, the basketball player. And yes, he's been playing out of his mind this year, which is a very, very, very impressive at age 37. I don't know how you do it without a major injury in 19 seasons. That's really tough to do. Kudos to him for taking care of his body. It's just incredible. He hit the genetic lottery, but the guy works really hard. So he deserves what he's getting body-wise out of himself. So got to appreciate that. I can't hate on that. But I think the media is afraid to go at LeBron. For instance, the other night, Russell Westbrook had 7 turnovers. LeBron also had 7 turnovers and very sloppy play. But the media focuses on what's wrong with Russ. What about the supporting cast? Maybe because LeBron had 32 points still, but they're very careful about who they go at. Except recently, after that game, they got blown out by the Pelicans. Local LA Lakers beat writer Bill Oram apparently wrote a column that LeBron didn't like. Someone asked him about it, and LeBron said, quote, Bill doesn't like the Lakers. Everything he writes is negative, end quote. I'm paraphrasing a little bit there. But he basically got on Bill Oram for being – he's not a fan. He is a sports writer. That's his job. And so he was writing some critical things. And then LeBron, because he realized when LeBron James says something, people are going to listen and they're going to follow his lead. They were attacking him online, probably threatening him, whatever. So LeBron on Twitter came out and said, back off of Bill. We talked after the game. I know he has a job to do. He has sources. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but leave him alone. So I'm glad LeBron did that at least. But he was visibly upset at the post-game podium talking to Bill Oram, or, complaining that the writers are saying something's wrong. They've hit rock bottom. All these things. I refuse to, if things aren't going well, what is he supposed to write about? It's not good right now for the Lakers. What is he supposed to say? Well, we'll just wait till next year. No, he has to report on what's going on right now. He has to tell the truth, basically. And the truth is the Lakers suck. They're really bad. They're really old. They're lazy. They don't play defense. There's no energy in the building. You could hear the broadcasters on the telecast the other night. I think it was Richard Jefferson, Ryan Rucco. They were saying, there's no juice in the building. You can't feel the energy. There's no passion anymore. The team looks flat, dead, no energy. And they're playing like it. And teams are just outworking them. They're younger. They're coming in, shooting the lights out, and the Lakers have no answer because they can't shoot to save their lives. And they're just not a cohesive unit. The Russell Westbrook experiment, I was really hoping for more from Russ. I know when you're a really athletic player, guys like John Wall, Derrick Rose, they don't age well because they're predicated on athleticism, their game is. And then when you get older and you're not a great shooter, you really never had to because you get away with being athletic. Russell Westbrook, he's a he's a terrible shooter. Let's just call it what it is. You know, even those bank shots he tries and they hit the side of the backboard, like he's just not a good shooter. And he's in his head and he's turning the ball over and he's trying to, he's not dunking on people as much anymore. He's trying to drive the lane amongst the trees and he's getting his shot blocked. He's getting frustrated and then it leads to frustration fouls and turnovers and just bad play. I was expecting more from Russell Westbrook. I thought he would play a lot of games. When LeBron didn't, he could take over kind of like he did in Oklahoma City, where he would run the show and score and pass and rebound and all that stuff. It's just not happening. I don't know if Russ is aging out now and his body just can't hang with the style of play anymore, but it just didn't work. So I don't know if it's hard to move a $46 million per year contract. Now, next year it's expiring, meaning just one more year after this. And you can maybe move it then. But the Lakers front office at the deadline said, LeBron, this is what you wanted, your mess. You're going to have to deal with it and clean it up. So I don't know if they're going to go into coast mode. I don't know if they're going to make the play-in tournament. I don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers, but I know a lot of people are happy because the Lakers win a lot in their history. So the non-Laker fans, aka Clipper fans, Boston, everybody but Laker fans, Laker Nation, is going to be thrilled to see the Lakers fall right now. We'll see. I'm not sure what they're going to do in the offseason. It'll be very interesting what they do with Anthony Davis. If it were up to me, I would look into trading Anthony Davis. I think that if he's already this much at age 27, 28, he's not even 30 yet, and the guy gets hurt almost every other game. Man, it's just it's frustrating to watch, and you have to wonder what the Lakers front office is thinking right now. So lots to chew on there. I hope baseball comes up with a resolution with the MLB lockout. If you liked any of the stuff, feel free to leave a comment below. If you're on YouTube Live, please subscribe, rate, review, like, share, all that stuff. Drop a comment down below this video. I appreciate you listening and checking in with me and following the Too Tall Sports podcast. I really appreciate it. If you're on any of the audio channels, every Thursday I drop a podcast, Too Tall Sports Podcast. Check that out. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm there. Pandora, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever it is. And check it out. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can check me out on Instagram and TikTok at Too Tall Sports Podcast, all one word. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. Check me out there. And enjoy your week of sports. And hopefully we have some resolutions with baseball coming up soon. Lots of NCAA college basketball going on. And the NBA, of course, exciting stuff hopefully happening soon. I know we're in a lull right now, but we're going to come out of it hopefully sooner than later. So thank you for joining me tonight, and I will see you all next week. Have a good one.